So in today's video, I'm going to be ranking every League 2 club's manager from best to worst. If you do go on to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 150 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts down in the comment section down below. How would you assess your club's manager, and which of the 5 categories that I've selected would you put him in? We'll start out firstly then with Andy Crosby of Tranmere Rovers. Obviously his second managerial job. He's previously been the manager of Port Vale, where again he went from assistant manager to caretaker manager, then to being the full-time manager. He's done the same thing now at Tranmere Rovers. Hasn't had the best start to life with Tranmere, didn't do particularly well with Port Vale either. Did well last season as the Tranmere caretaker manager. They were obviously the only team in the second half of last campaign to beat Bradford City at Valley Parade last season, although it was down to a very dubious penalty. But I look at his record as a manager, hasn't really managed that many games, and the games that he hasn't particularly impressed that much. So I think I'm going to put Andy Crosby in the meh category. Andy Whing is the current manager of Barrow AFC and has previously spent time at clubs like Banbury and also Solihull Moors. Solihull was the job that he did do the best at, managed closer to 100 games for them. Since he's gone into Barrow, he's not done awful in all honesty, but you look at the kind of achievements of Barrow, where they were just missing out on the playoffs under the previous management in at Pete Wild, whereas now they're not particularly kicking on and getting better under Andy Whing. So for that reason alone, again, he's probably another manager that for me I'm probably going to put into that meh category. Andy Woodman is the current manager of Bromley FC, and I think for me personally he's doing a very good job there. It's his first and only job as a manager, has previously done work at other Premier League clubs in terms of being a goalkeeping coach. He was also the Whitehawk manager for a couple of months, but we've not really got much information there. But in terms of proper EFL management, Bromley is his first and only job. He's managed 231 games there, averaged over 1.5 points per game as well. His Bromley side have had a really good start to life at League 2 level. They obviously did very well in their first season at last campaign as well. I think Andy Woodman for me is a really good manager, especially at this level. Very loyal to Bromley when I'm sure he's had offers from teams in higher divisions, but for me personally, I think Andy Woodman, for what he's achieved at Bromley, he's a very, very good manager. He's maybe a little bit unlucky as well to miss out on that elite category. Danny Cowley is the current manager of Colchester United, and to be fair, he's had a fair few EFL jobs. So far this campaign, his Colchester side haven't got off to the best start to life in League 2, although they did recently beat Walsall FC. He's previously managed clubs such as Portsmouth, Huddersfield, and also Lincoln City. He did a very good job at Braintree and Lincoln, then got his opportunity at Huddersfield, which he massively failed at. Didn't succeed at Portsmouth either. Now isn't succeeding at Colchester. We're looking at 2019, the last time that he was really successful as a manager. And don't get me wrong, his stints at Huddersfield and Portsmouth weren't awful. He did quite well with Colchester last campaign, but he's a very nearly manager. You know, he's just not quite ever had enough to get a team over the line or quite achieve the objectives that Portsmouth were looking to set out with promotion, or Colchester with the playoffs. And it's not like they've had an awful squad throughout that time as well. Did very well a long time ago, like I say, with Braintree and Lincoln City, but more recently hasn't quite delivered. I don't think he's a bad manager, but he probably levels out in okay for me. Darrell Clarke is back at Bristol Rovers. He rejoined the football club in the summer, and I know they've had a really awful start to life at this level, but to be fair, Darrell Clarke has had a fair few jobs since the last time he was manager of Bristol Rovers. He went on to Walsall, where he didn't quite achieve what he wanted to. I think won a promotion with Port Vale. I'm pretty sure he did okay with Cheltenham Town, and then didn't really succeed throughout his time at Barnsley, but I wouldn't really say he was given that long of a chance. In all honesty, he was sacked at the end of last campaign before obviously Conor Horan did come in, and now obviously he's back at Bristol Rovers, where he hasn't quite achieved what he probably did want. His stint at Port Vale, I think he's certainly the standout, where obviously he went on to achieve that promotion, but for me, I think he has had a fair few too many failed jobs now to really consider him as a proper elite level manager. So for that reason, I'm going to put Darrell Clarke, I think, in that okay category. He's very similar to Danny Cowley, I'd say. David Artell is the current manager of Grimsby Town and has previously managed the likes of Crewe Alexandra and only Crewe Alexandra. He managed nearly 275 games with the football club. He's now got over 100 throughout his time at Grimsby Town, and there was a spell in his first season where a lot of Grimsby fans wanted him out. Last campaign, they just missed out on the playoffs, ending the season absolutely awfully. I know this campaign around mid-table in League 2, but they've got a fair few former Bradford City players, likes of Charles Vernon, Rhys Staunton, Jamie Walker. They've got Clarke on loan as well. So I would like to see Grimsby succeed this campaign, and to be honest, I think they might get top 7, but the top 3 I think might be a little bit too much of an ask for them this campaign. But David Artell obviously won a couple of promotions with Crewe Alexandra. Also, obviously, in that time has also had a couple of relegations. Yet to really achieve anything with Grimsby Town. But I think for League 2 level, I'd probably say David Artell is a good manager for this level. But again, he's limited in terms of, I don't quite think he's an elite level manager. Really struggled in League 1 and now obviously hasn't quite got Grimsby into the top 7 as of right now. The Newport manager was sacked a couple of days ago, so he obviously goes into the no good category. He's not a manager that I've heard of before. Honestly, I can't even remember his name, with all due respect, but obviously I have to put somebody in for Newport. I know he was sacked 3 days ago, but they haven't actually appointed anybody since then. So the Newport manager, whatever his name was, Summit Hughes maybe, was it Andrew Hughes, David Hughes? Not 100% sure on his name, but he's in the no good category. Dean Brennan is the current manager of Barnet FC, and if I'm being completely honest, he's not a name that I have heard of before. Being a Bradford City fan, I've not really looked into League 2 that much so far this campaign, but he was appointed back in 2022. He had previously been manager of the likes of Hemel Hempstead and Billericay, Kingstonian and Wealdstone, before more recently being the director of football at Barnet before becoming the caretaker manager. Since going in full-time, he's now managed 185 games, got Barnet back into the Football League as well, so he does deserve immense credit for that. Had a really good start to life at League 2 level as well. I'm seeing no reasons other than, for me personally, Dean Brennan is a good manager for League 2 level. Gareth Ainsworth is the current manager of Gillingham FC, having been appointed at the club back in March, and to be fair, he has had a fair few jobs so far this campaign, doing a pretty solid job with Gillingham. They've obviously been back in League 2 for a number of seasons now, and it's been a lot of mid-table, lower part of the table mediocrity for them. In terms of his career as a manager, obviously started out as a full-time manager at Wycombe Wanderers, where he managed over 500 games at the football club, was there from the 1st of July 2013 to the 20th of February 2023, where obviously went on to join QPR. That was an absolutely disastrous time as a manager. I think it was last season, got an opportunity with Shrewsbury Town, and it was clear that it just didn't quite really work out there for him. I know that Shrewsbury were a mess off the field last campaign. Obviously, that translated to them being a mess on the pitch. He decided to jump ship and join Gillingham, where he's obviously seen a much more successful time as of right now. But I think at Gillingham, he's going to want to build something like what he did build at Wycombe. I think there's slightly more pressure on Gillingham to succeed than what there was at Wycombe Wanderers. I think Gareth Ainsworth is a man that you either love or you hate, but having had a disastrous time with QPR, not particularly great time with Shrewsbury, but considering how well he did with Wycombe, getting them into the Championship, doing a very good job with Gillingham so far. For me personally, if we're talking about League 2 managers, Gareth Ainsworth, he's elite in my opinion. Ian Holloway is a man that has certainly been around the block, but he is currently the manager of Swindon Town, and like I say, he has had a fair few managerial jobs in his career. His first one goes back to 1999. In fact, he'd had 2 jobs before I was even born. I know him most notably, I would say, from his time at Blackpool, and obviously got an opportunity at Crystal Palace. Had a disastrous spell with Grimsby Town, really, and was out of the game for 4 or 5 years. Went into Swindon Town when they were in the relegation zone in League 2, and I think a lot of people thought that Swindon were massively going to struggle and definitely go down last campaign with their off-the-field issues as well surrounding, is it Clem Morfuni? I want to say off the top of my head, but he went in there and turned it around post-Christmas at home. They were very strong at last campaign. Bradford City obviously had the crazy game back in April where they beat us 5-4 on that day, one of the craziest games of football I've ever witnessed. But he's had so many jobs as Ian Holloway, and so many of them were when I was a fetus, so I can't really tell you how good of a manager he was back in the day. All I really know from Ian Holloway is his time at Grimsby Town, which was a catastrophe, his time at Swindon Town so far, which has been positive despite him trying to threaten one of the Swindon fans when they lost 1-0 away at Bradford City last campaign. But for me personally, I'd say in terms of a League 2 manager, I'd say Ian Holloway is a good manager. manager for this level. He's had a fair few jobs in the Championship and probably in the Premier League as well, but for League 2 level, I'd certainly say Ian Holloway is a good manager. John Doolan is the current manager of Accrington Stanley, and he is currently in his first job as manager. Had 3 games as a caretaker and now has had 84 as the permanent manager. He's doing a steady away job, keeping Accrington in League 2. It's nothing fancy. They're only averaging just over a point per game in the league. 4 wins, 5 draws and 7 defeats from their start to this League 2 campaign. They're certainly not reaching the heights of the 17-18 season, I think it was, where they won the League 2 title that campaign. But John Doolan, for me, certainly not an awful manager, but certainly nothing too impressive. I'll stick him in there. Karl Robinson is a man that we've all seen on our screens a fair decent amount of time so far this campaign with the new Salford City documentary. Me personally, I am quite enjoying it. Seeing it behind the scenes, it was quite interesting to see his reaction to Salford potentially getting robbed in their defeat against MK Dons the other day. But again, he's another manager that's had a fair few different roles. I actually didn't know he was the assistant manager at Leeds United. Was that of Sam Allardyce? It was for 4 games, but obviously did very well with MK Dons, managed nearly 350 games there. His time at Charlton was positive while not being spectacular, I would say, and then his time at Oxford was very mixed. A couple of promotion pushes, but then also a couple of relegation battles as well. Now obviously gone in at Salford City and doing a steady away job there. For me personally, Karl Robinson is, I think when you're managing against his side, similar to Gareth Ainsworth, they're very annoying to play against. But in terms of tactics and man management, for me personally, I don't think there's many better at League 2 level. So I'm going to stick Karl Robinson up in that elite category. Lee Bell is the current manager of Crewe Alexandra, I believe the successor to David Artell. And they've had a pretty positive start to life in League 2 so far this campaign. He's managed over 150 games at the football club now with not a particularly great points per match record. He is obviously somebody who's been promoted through the system, starting out as the Crewe under-18 assistant manager a decade ago, now obviously the first team manager of the football club. And I think over the last couple of seasons, Crewe have been a team that up until Christmas are right up there, in and around automatic promotion, then post-Christmas just massively fall off and end up in mid-table. Their downfall last campaign was kind of shadowed by how bad that Walsall were in the second half of last campaign, but Crewe's wasn't much worse in all honesty. Obviously yet to achieve a promotion with the football club. I don't think has done anything particularly special since his time at Crewe, so for that reason I'm probably going to put him, again, another one in the meh category. Martin Paterson's appointment at Notts County I don't think went down particularly well with the fan base, certainly generally speaking, but I think he's starting to win a few of their fans over. They've had a really positive start to the campaign, 1.75 points per game on average. Has previously been the manager of Burton Albion, where he failed, in all honesty. I know that being the Burton manager in League 1 can be quite a tough job, as done quite a lot of stints as the assistant manager to the likes of Michael Duff and Phil Neville over in America as well, Jason Kreese and also Neil Collins. So he's been around the block, to be fair, has Martin Paterson. I wouldn't say he's anything that massively stands out. I don't think if he was to lose his job at Notts County, there would be a number of other clubs queuing up for his services. Like I say, massively failed at Burton Albion. He's doing a steady away job with Notts County. So for that reason alone, I'll probably put him in the meh category. I know he's quite a young manager, still yet to achieve anything really in the game, but if he gets Notts a promotion, then I guess that could bump him up a little bit. Matt Sadler was the manager of the biggest bottle in EFL history last campaign, where Walsall went from being around 12 points clear to finishing outside of the top 3 at the end of last campaign, losing out to that final promotion spot to Bradford City on the final day, that famous Anthony Sarcevic goal in the 96th minute. But in terms of Sadler as a manager, this is his first and only job as a full-time manager. He's previously, again, another one similar to Lee Bell, worked his way up through the ranks. He's previously been a technical coach at the football club, and I'm pretty sure was a player as well. So far this campaign, they have had a really positive start to the season, although I'm pretty sure they've lost either 4 of their last 5 or 5 of their last 6. Recently, the bottle has started to show a little bit, and again, much earlier than what it did at last campaign, but I still think what he achieved in the first half of last campaign and what he has still achieved up until now is nothing to be overlooked at. But again, he was also part of, if we're going to give him credit for the up, you also got to criticise him for the down as well. You know, he's still the manager throughout all of that. So Matt Sadler, he's a very weird one to position, but I think the general consensus, if you've not really achieved much as a manager, you're going in the meh category. He's not won the promotion yet with Walsall, so I'm going to put him in meh. Michael Appleton is the current manager of Shrewsbury Town, and for me personally, he's never really been a manager that I have rated, only averaging 1 point per game so far this season with Shrewsbury Town, an absolutely awful record there. His time at Charlton was a failure, his time at Blackpool was a failure as well. He did quite well, I would say, with Lincoln City, and then before that we're going back to times where, again, I don't really remember what Michael Appleton was like in 2011 as the Portsmouth manager. So recently his last 3 jobs have all ended disastrously. Did okay with Lincoln City, but not a manager that I rate whatsoever. He's massively failing with Shrewsbury Town as of right now, and I'm not really too sure how he keeps getting jobs, in all honesty. So for me personally, I think he's going to join the Newport manager in the no good category. I'd be gutted if Bradford City appointed him. Micky Mellon is the current Oldham Athletic manager, not to be confused with his son Michael Mellon, who is the striker for Oldham Athletic. Obviously, he spent the second half of last season on loan with Bradford City. But in terms of Micky Mellon, he's had a couple of jobs as a manager, did quite well with Shrewsbury Town. He's had 2 different spells with Tranmere Rovers where he did pretty positively there. His time at Dundee wasn't amazing, but again, wasn't a failure. Obviously, won a promotion as well last campaign with Oldham Athletic, got them back into the Football League, and he's now been manager at that football club for over 100 matches. So far in League 2, so far this campaign, yeah, they've drawn a fair few, but they've only lost 4 games from their opening 16. For me personally, I think Micky Mellon is a really good manager for this level, so that's, I guess, the category we're going to stick him in. Good. Neil Harris recently as a manager has been chopping and changing over the last couple of years as who he is actually managing. He's now back at Cambridge United for this campaign, having previously spent time at Millwall and Cambridge and Millwall and Cambridge and also Cardiff and Gillingham as well. His time at Gillingham wasn't particularly successful. His first stint at Cambridge wasn't awful given the context of things, and so far this campaign they're not doing awful again, but certainly not doing well whatsoever. He seems like his most successful time as a manager has been as the Millwall boss, where he's managed nearly 300 games across his couple of spells at the football club. So it's weird how he can do so well in the Championship but then seem to struggle at League 2 and at League 1 level. For me personally though, I think Neil Harris has got a lot of pedigree given how well that he did with Millwall, so I'll probably stick him in. I think I'm going to put him right at the top of okay, because he has been quite inconsistent. He has, in terms of League 2 managers, maybe struggled a little bit at this level. So I'm going to stick Neil Harris in okay, but if you want to disagree and put him in the good category, I'm also not against that. Don't shoot me, but make sure to like, comment and subscribe. Paul Cook is a very experienced manager, and similar to Neil Harris, he's had a fair few jobs as a gaffer. Now is the current manager of Chesterfield FC, where again, he's previously spent time at the football club. Didn't do particularly well at Southport back in 2006, but did incredibly well at Sligo Rovers, managing over 200 games there. Then struggled at Accrington before doing a very good job with Chesterfield. Did very well at Portsmouth, did a solid job at Wigan. His time at Ipswich did not really work out, and he wasn't really given that long as a manager, but recently has won a promotion with Chesterfield, got them into the playoffs in his first season as manager at League 2 level. He's closing in on 200 games as a manager as well at League 2 level. He's done a really good job in terms of points per match. This is his best job in terms of points per game as well. So for me, Paul Cook, a very good manager for this level. I think he's an elite gaffer for League 2. Struggle with Ipswich, but that's the only real job that he's massively struggled with as a manager. I know he didn't do particularly well with Accrington, but we're going back to 2012 there. That would seem extremely harsh to be judging him on that. But overall, I would say did a very good job at Wigan, did solid at Portsmouth as well. Paul Cook for me, he's a good gaffer. Elite, I'd say. Paul Warne has had a couple of jobs as gaffer, but recently was appointed as the new MK Dons manager, and certainly seems to be now turning that ship around, and they're now heading in the right direction. Has previously managed clubs like Derby County, where he got them promoted out of League 1 but then struggled in the Championship with them. Was at Rotherham United for 5 years, where he won a number of promotions but also got a couple of relegations on his CV as well. Very good League 1 manager, but a really poor Championship manager. In League 2 so far this campaign, I think MK Dons are in and around that top 3. They've obviously got a massive budget, the biggest spenders in the entire division, and I know his Championship relegations do come with it, but the amount of League 1 promotions that Paul Warne has won, it would feel very wrong of me to put him anywhere other than elite manager. And when you look at the budget that was at the likes of Rotherham and maybe even Derby County as well, you know, these are not massive figures that we're talking about like what we're talking about now at MK Dons compared to the rest of the league. league, but he seems to be handling that pressure very well. I think he's certainly the best man to get rid of the egos that are in that squad when you compare him to Scott Lindsey, who we'll come on to in a moment, who was managing their last campaign. I think Paul Warne, for me, is an elite level manager at League 2 level. Pete Wild was a man that when he came through at Oldham Athletic, I was very excited about him as a head coach. There was a number of different murmurs and rumblings about him getting a Bradford City job across a couple of different appointments. Now the current manager of Fleetwood Town, no idea what just went on there. Some dodgy link came up there. Not 100% sure where that has come from. But like I say, now the current manager of Fleetwood Town, where they've had an okay start to life at this level, did very well, I would say, with Barrow, did an excellent job with Halifax Town and was harshly sacked, I would say, at Oldham Athletic, where I thought he did quite a good job there across his caretaker and permanent spell as a manager. As I think time's gone on, though, he's kind of lost a bit of credibility in the bank. I think at Oldham, his stock was here, and then Halifax, it probably was around that sort of place, and then Barrow did very well, and it was maybe rising, and then towards the end of it kind of did fall off a little bit. And now at Fleetwood, I just don't think he's particularly going to achieve much there. I don't think he's won a promotion as a manager and can come across as a little bit whiny on the touchlines. You would say he's got an awful style of play at some of these smaller clubs. It's awful to watch, but it's effective and it does get results. Pete Wild, for me, I'm going to stick him in the okay category. Scott Lindsey is an incredibly interesting one. Now back at Crawley Town, having been reappointed as the manager back in March, obviously got Crawley promoted out of League 2, winning the playoffs in the 23-24 season, where everybody expected them to get relegated at that campaign. It was one of the biggest kind of overachievements in EFL history, really. You know, that was an absolutely iconic promotion, was that. Then obviously last season in League 1, jumped ship when it was all going wrong for him, went to be the new manager of MK Dons, where he massively failed. An absolutely awful stint there, similar to his time at Swindon Town, two massive failures. Now back at Crawley Town, where again he hasn't particularly impressed. Had a couple of very impressive wins in League 1 last campaign, where they were pretty much already relegated at that point. And obviously now back at Crawley, they're not doing particularly well this season, so we've got to factor all these things in. He's had 3 failed jobs, I would say, but then you also consider how iconic that promotion was with Crawley Town, so it's very hard to say. I think I'll probably average him out into somewhere between men okay. It's a very, very heavily possession-based style of play, which I don't particularly like to watch. You know, it's passing for passing's sake. I'm going to put him in okay, because Pete Wild's not won a promotion, Scott Lindsey did. I'm going to put him in okay, but again, I'm willing to hear arguments otherwise on that one. Let me know what you think down below. The penultimate manager then is Simon Weaver, currently of Harrogate Town. Has Weaver actually had any other previous jobs? He hasn't. He was a player coach at Harrogate Town. He's now managed 651 matches as manager, obviously won a number of different promotions. They've done a very good job to stay in the Football League for, I think this is their 5th season in the Football League in a row, which is an absolutely incredible achievement. So fair play to Simon Weaver. I know this season they've struggled at times. They're averaging less than a point per game as of right now, but they only named 3 substitutes on the bench away at Notts County, and it was a dubious last minute penalty which has potentially robbed them of getting all 3 points out of that game. I think the loyalty that obviously his dad has shown to Simon Weaver being the owner, it is pretty helpful, isn't it? But again, I'm sure considering how well Weaver has done at Harrogate Town, he's probably had offers from other clubs as well where he could have potentially jumped ship, but obviously he's been at the club for over 14 years now. It's an absolutely incredible achievement. So for me personally, I think I'm going to put Simon Weaver in the good category. I think what he's done at Harrogate Town is undeniably a very good achievement. So he's a good manager for me. When we're talking about experienced managers, Steve Cotterill is the final one of today's video. Current manager and now back at Cheltenham Town, having been appointed at the end of September. And he's had a lot of jobs as a manager. Started out at Sligo Rovers in 1995. In fact, he'd had about 5 different jobs before I was even born. This is how experienced of a manager that we are talking about here. Managed 1 game as Cheltenham. Surely that can't be right. No, we're looking at across from, I mean, that's a 5-year period. He's managed much more than 1 game, hasn't he? I'm pretty sure he won a league title or 2 there. Obviously, I can't really factor the majority of this in. I think he was at Portsmouth when they were going through a lot of financial difficulties, as previously being the assistant manager to the likes of Harry Redknapp. When Redknapp left Birmingham, he then took over there and didn't do particularly well. Had a bit of a break from football, came back in as the Shrewsbury manager, was there for a couple of seasons and did a very good job, that I would say there. Very underrated what he did there. His time at Forest Green didn't really work out, but also didn't do an awful job there whatsoever, in honesty. And obviously he's now back at Cheltenham Town, got them massively punching above their weight. You look at where the Cheltenham Town squad was at under Michael Flynn compared to where it is at now. I think Steve Cotterill, for me, I know sometimes in his interviews and stuff he can come across a little bit sarky or marky, or I mean, his name's Steve, not Mark, so who knows. But Cheltenham Town, Steve Cotterill, I think it is a good fit. And for me personally, he's a man that I like. I like listening to his interviews and all that sort of stuff. I think he's an elite manager for League 2 level. That is my ranking of every League 2 manager. Let me know what you think down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. 150 likes would be massively appreciated. Let me know what you disagree with and why you disagree down in the comment section down below. What would you change? Thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you very soon for another one.